currently Earth. It was September 24th in the year 1789 that the first Supreme Court was established. The Judiciary Act of 1789 is passed by Congress and signed by President George Washington, establishing the Supreme Court of the United States as a tribunal made up of 6 justices who were to serve on the court until death or retirement. That day, President Washington nominated John Jay to preside as Chief Justice and John Rutledge, William Cushing, John Blair, Robert Harrison, and James Wilson to be Associate Justices. On September 26, all 6 appointments were confirmed by the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Supreme Court was established by Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution granted the Supreme Court ultimate jurisdiction over all laws, especially those in which their constitutionality was at issue. The High Court was also designated to oversee cases concerning treaties of the United States, foreign diplomats, admiralty practice, and maritime jurisdiction. On February 1st in 1790, the first session of the U.S. Supreme Court was held in New York City's Royal Exchange Building. Our U.S. Supreme Court grew into the most important judicial body in the world in terms of its central place in the American political order. According to the Constitution, the size of the court is set by Congress, and the number of justices varied during the 19th century before stabilizing in 1869 at 9. This number, however, can be changed at any time by Congress. In times of constitutional crisis, the nation's highest court has always played a definitive role in resolving, for better or worse, the great issues of the time. On September 24th in the year 1890, faced with imminent destruction of their church and way of life, religious leaders reluctantly issue the Mormon Manifesto, in which they command all Latter-day Saints to uphold the anti-polygamy laws of the nation. The leader had been given little choice. If they did not abandon polygamy, they faced federal confiscation of their sacred temples and the revocation of basic civil rights for all members of the church. Followers of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had been practicing the doctrine of plural marriage since the 1840s. The best available evidence suggests that the church founder, Joseph Smith, first began taking additional wives in 1841, and historians estimate he eventually married more than 50 women. For a time, the practice was shrouded in secrecy, though rumors of widespread polygamy had inspired much of the early hatred and violence directed against the Latter-day Saints in Illinois. After establishing their new theocratic state centered in Salt Lake City, the church elders publicly confirmed that plural marriage was a central LDS belief in 1852. The doctrine was distinctly one-sided. LDS women could not take multiple husbands. Any Latter-day Saints man couldn't just participate either. Only those who demonstrated unusually high levels of spiritual and economic worthiness were permitted to practice plural marriage, and the church also required that the first wife give her consent. As a result of these barriers, relatively few men had multiple wives. Best estimates suggest that men with 2 or more wives made up only 5 to 15% of the population of most Latter-day Saints communities. Even though only a tiny minority of Latter-day Saints practiced plural marriage, many church leaders were very reluctant to abandon it, arguing that to do so would destroy the LDS way of life. Ironically, though, the Mormon Manifesto's call for an end to polygamy actually paved the way to greater Mormon-Gentile cooperation and may well have helped ensure the religion's lasting vitality. It was September 24th in the year 2016 when the National Museum of African American History and Culture opened its doors for the first time. Barack Obama, our nation's 44th and first Black American president, led the ceremony and officially opened the museum by ringing the Freedom Bell, a bell from an African American Baptist church founded in 1776. As far back as 1915, there had been proposals for a museum recognizing the achievements of Black Americans. In 1929, our nation's 31st president, Herbert Hoover, approved a commission to create such an institution, but it never received funding. Various attempts were made to pass legislation establishing a museum through Congress, including multiple bills introduced by the awesome Georgia congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis. But even after the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian Institution joined the effort in the 1990s, it still took more than a decade. Finally, in 2003, Congress approved and President George W. Bush, our nation's 43rd president, signed legislation allocating $17 million to plan the museum and choose a site. Eventually, it was decided that the museum would sit on the National Mall. The newest addition to it is literally a long line of museums stretching from the Washington Monument to the Capitol. The final design, however, was like nothing else in the area. An inverted step pyramid encased in a bronze screen that references historic iron grills from African American communities in Charleston, South Carolina, and New Orleans, Louisiana. In the words of David Adjaye, a British architect of Ghanaian descent who was part of the design team, the building was meant to provide a punch at the end of the row of palaces that was the rest of the mall. The building rises 5 stories into the air and reaches equally deep underground. The museum was completed with just months left in President Barack Obama's second term. At the opening ceremony, the president shed tears as he talked about watching the museum's construction and imagining how he would one day tour it with his grandchildren. In addition to 2 former presidents, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and entertainers like Will Smith and Oprah Winfrey, Obama was joined by 4 generations of an African American family, the Bonners. 99-year-old Ruth Bonner, whose father was born into slavery, helped him ring the Freedom Bell, along with her daughter, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter. The National Museum of African American History and Culture drew 2.4 million visitors in its first full year of operation, and is the world's largest museum dedicated to African American history and culture. The information divulged over this audio file can be verified on history.com.